And we are going. What's up, George?
Nothing much. Just excited to be on your podcast. This is going to be a lot of fun.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, I'm excited to have you on too because you do fun stuff.
I try to do fun stuff. Let's see. When I'm not doing well, actually, I was going to say when I'm not at my regular job, but I love my regular job, so that's
Oh, well,
okay.
that's good. That's good
Enjoy,
that you.
love my job, and then love my side hobby of studying all the Disney and the theme parks and everything else. So
Wow, life's good, huh, George?
yeah, I try. I try. I try.
Sweet, man. Well, let's just get into it. Yeah. So, I guess how would you? Can you kind of describe what you do or what your site is to people? Like when you meet somebody, what do you say you do?
Sure, sure. So imaginerding.com. I have to give all the props to my younger brother. Came up with the name, and he
It's a good
went.
name.
I was impressed with it as well. And he went on a family trip in 2007 and saw so many people that were like disappointed and in the middle of Epcot yelling at each other and screaming, because it's hot. They paid a lot of money. The kids aren't happy. And he said, I want to come back and do something. I want to help people make their trips a lot more enjoyable and a lot more fun. So I
Okay.
said, okay, let's start this website because that was all cool in 2007. Everybody's starting a blog. Let's
Oh
do it.
yeah.
And after like a month, he said, well, you know what? I've got too much on my plate as is. So you can do it. And then I just merged into what ImagiNERDing is today, which is just looking at the history of Disney parks, the history of theme parks, a roller coaster fanatic, and just Disney history, really. And when people ask me what I do, in addition to my day job, where I am a librarian, so that goes along with the books and everything else, and the research and the studying.
Mm-hmm.
I just tell people I love theme parks and amusement park history. That's what I like to do, and they're like, okay. But I live in Central Florida. I've been here for 4 or 5 months now, so it's second nature to people like, oh, you're one of those people that goes to all the parks and does everything. But I've been doing
Yes.
this for more than 10 years, so I have a blast with it, enjoy it, and yeah, always happy to
Sweet.
talk to people about parks.
Yeah.
So,
Awesome. Well, congrats on 10 years. That's a long time.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Just something I've just kept going. I've had lots of other different things that I've done and written for. Had a big podcast called Communal Core Weekly that lasted for 5 years, and I YouTube now, which is fun for my weekend adventures. As I tell friends, and I'll show you all of my annual passes in a bit. But as I tell friends, it's
Oh.
like, oh yeah, I've got what 10 parks to choose from every weekend where I'm going to go. It's a tough choice. So I try to vlog about my weekend adventures, just checking out what's new at the parks, and then throw in history, you know, and
Mhm.
the latest rides.
Right on.
So,
So is that one of the reasons why you moved to Florida?
yes, actually, it's the reason I moved to Florida.
It's the reason, right
Yeah,
on.
the my origin story, because I know we'll get to that. Everybody
Yes.
has to have a good origin story. Probably when I was like 4 or 5 or 6, lived in Cincinnati, Ohio. Friends came back from a trip to Disney World in the mid '70s with a ViewMaster, and it had a reel, from Magic Kingdom, and I saw the Haunted Mansion, and that was my dream to get to the Haunted Mansion. It took me almost 20 years to get down there.
Oh
My
man.
my parents never took me. They were like, "Nah, we thought about it, but we're like, it's probably too much of a problem." So when my wife and I, on our 1 year anniversary, we went down
Uh,
to Disney, first trip there, and I was hooked. And from that moment, I
mhm.
wanted to get down here, but it's just waiting till the right job came open and everything. But hey, Central Florida, all these parks, the Orlando airport, I can fly anywhere in the world cheap. So,
Yeah.
and I'm coming to California in June,
Oh, nice.
Coaster Con with the American Coaster Enthusiasts. So I'll be up at Six Flags Magic Mountain.
Wow, I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah, yeah. There's the American Coaster Enthusiast. It's probably about 5 or 6 thousand people that love coasters, and they
Oh,
travel all over the world and the country riding coasters and
that's
talking about
awesome.
them. Yeah,
Sweet.
it's different. So yeah, it took me 20 years to get down to Disney, and then another 20 years to move down here. I might be slow, but I get things done.
You
But
get
yeah,
there.
so I'm here so I can enjoy the parks on the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
which is awesome
Yeah,
because you're in Southern California, right?
I am. Yes.
So you can hit Disneyland, Knott's Berry Farm whenever you feel like it, basically.
Very true.
See,
Yeah.
see, that's exciting. That's
Yeah.
exciting.
This is probably Florida's probably the theme park capital of the world, wouldn't you
Hmm.
say?
It
Yeah. And this
is.
is probably number two over here in Southern California.
I think so. Yeah. The only other place you'd probably want to be, except for the snow and the ice, is like the middle of Ohio.
Oh, really?
Because, yeah, you have Cedar Point, Kings Island, Holiday World, Kings Dominion, Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, all the Six Flags parks on the East Coast. You're within like 4 or 5 driving hours
Oh, I
of all
didn't
those
realize that.
parks. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm a font of ridiculous information.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. You've like, how many books have you read on the subject?
Well,
On theme?
I don't know how many I've read. I do have, no one's challenged me, so I'm taking the title of the world's largest privately held book collection about theme parks and amusement parks in Disney. And I probably have about 1,300 different books in my collection.
Wow.
Yeah, I know when we did the Communicore Weekly show, the podcast, it was weekly. Yeah,
Hmm.
Communicore Weekly, that makes sense. And one of the segments was, yeah, George's Book of the Week. So for
Okay.
5 years, 52 episodes, I reviewed a book.
Yeah, that's a lot of
So
books adding
it's
up
a
there.
lot of books. That's a lot of books.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you don't just own the books like most people, you've actually read them.
Oh, I read them cover to cover, make
Yeah.
notes, do things, for just to be annoying when I'm in the parks. Like, hey, did you know about that over there? Did you know about that? But also
Yeah.
for ImagiNERDing, so I can write articles about, Disney history and theme park history.
Hmm.
That's what I love.
That's what you're all
So,
about. Yeah,
yes.
it must be hard to restrain yourself when you go to a park and you know like so much that you just want to share with everybody, right?
Or when you see people or hear people and they're like, hey, the other day I was at Epcot. I was only in Epcot. Nobody hate me for 20 minutes. I parked, walked in the park, got the pass holder magnet, and then left and went to SeaWorld.
Okay.
So, I can do that. But somebody was walking by Spaceship Earth, the big giant golf ball at the beginning of the park, and they said, hey, this used to be decorated like the planet Mars. And I went, huh? Okay, I don't have time to
Right,
give you the
yeah.
full history lesson, but I just love hearing people's misconceptions about the
Yeah.
park. It's always like, where did that come from?
That's a
That's
weird one.
Yeah, that's maybe they'd seen some concept art because Epcot originally was golden in color from some of the original concept artwork.
Oh,
But
okay.
but I doubt they would have known that. They didn't look nerdy. So, yeah. Yeah.
Weird, some false memory or something maybe.
That's what I'm wondering. That's what I'm
Yeah.
wondering. So,
Whew. Okay. So, I'm trying to figure out where to start, but I think you wanted, or you at least mentioned that there is kind of maybe a misconception or a difference between a theme
oh.
park and amusement park, right?
Yeah, a lot of people do that interchangeably. They use those
Yeah.
terms for just about anything.
Hmm.
And a little bit of history, but this is the Curiosityness podcast. That's what we're all about,
Yep.
is doing that. So the people may not care, but they're going to listen to it. Whether they're like, no, just kidding. So there's an argument about, the theme park basically, Walt Disney was the one to his organization coined the term theme park with Disneyland.
Okay.
Before that, it was the term amusement park. So it goes back to Holiday World in Santa Claus, Indiana, or Knott's Berry Farm fight each other over which is the actual first theme park.
Okay.
Knott's has a big banner saying they're the world's first theme park, whatever. I'll let them duke it out. But it's sort of like a square and a rectangle.
Hmm.
So you're like a rectangle can be a square, but a square can't be a rectangle. So
Okay.
a theme park can be an amusement park, but an amusement park cannot be a theme park. Because
I
an
see.
amusement park is just a collection of rides mishmashed together, usually with an admission gate and you're charging it in. But a theme park, once you're inside, you of course don't feel like you're in the real world. The Magic Kingdom, Disneyland are perfect examples where they've got hyper-themed realities around you. So you don't feel like you're in the real world, or you don't feel like you're at an amusement park. You actually feel like you're in New Orleans Square,
Right.
which
Okay.
is, or when you visit Universal and you go into Diagon Alley or something like that, you feel like you're in the Wizarding World. The outside
Okay.
world is there. So a theme park is just different lands, and it's highly themed, and you lose all sense of where you are. Is a broad explanation.
Right.
So our
Okay.
definition of it.
So
But yeah,
would
so
it, and is an amusement park more kind of like a fair carnival type of thing?
yeah, that's what you would see: the flat rides, the spinning rides, the dark rides.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you'd of course roller coasters, things like that, but it'd be more like a carnival, that sort
Okay.
of thing. And then, of course, Universal, the Disney parks, SeaWorld are more of the theme parks because they spend a lot of time and effort and money on their
Mm-hmm.
theme. So
Right. Makes
yeah, but
sense.
I cringe a little inside when people just use those terms interchangeably. I'm like, oh, so
Yeah. Well, I
but
did. I was
that's
ignorant. I had no idea.
that's okay. Now you know. And
Now I know.
half the battle, or anyway, there's a meme in there somewhere that my kids would tell me, but yeah, I don't know about
Yes.
that. So, but yeah, so
Oh,
but one of my projects is, looking at the history of amusement parks, how we got from, tracing it back to the even before the World's Fairs that we held here in the early part of the 1900s and in Europe. What was before them? The pleasure gardens, like Tivoli is a pleasure garden,
hmm.
to what we would consider, the world's greatest parks, like in Orlando and Disneyland.
Mm-hmm.
How did we get to those? So it
Yeah.
just fascinates me, as well as the different rides. And, because when people say Coney Island, you think of, oh, that's just a park in, the New York area. Well, it's
Mm-hmm.
actually an island, and it started with like 3 or 4 parks that evolved and changed
Oh, I
over.
didn't realize that.
So, yeah, so it's not just like Coney Island wasn't one park, it was multiple parks over
Okay.
time. And, the shoots were developed in Chicago, which are like the sort of like the big boats that they just go over the hill and they splash down. That's
Oh,
a
okay.
that's a shoot ride,
Mm-hmm.
which is different from what like Splash Mountain, which is just a log flume ride, but the same concept. So a lot of these rides and attractions were developed in the early 1900s, late 1800s, with the
Yeah.
development of parks. And the only things that really changed were safety standards.
Okay. Yeah. I was curious about
That's
that. Yeah.
yeah, it's safety standards were the big ones. Was it? Uh, oh, I'm gonna get my names wrong, and coaster fans are gonna yell at me. John Miller invented the upstop for roller coasters in the 1920s. So
Mm-hmm.
before that time period, most roller coasters, they didn't go more than 5 or 6 miles an hour, and you
Oh, okay.
basically sat on a couch. And yeah, there were safety, no safety restraints, nothing like that at all.
Right.
And you see video, and they're wearing their top hats. They've got their canes with them when they're on the ride, and
Mm-hmm.
they're all gravity. But they were in sort of the wheels were in an L-shaped trough, so that they wouldn't move side to side, which kept them on the track. There were two
Mm-hmm.
like L-shaped troughs that faced each other. So
Okay.
the coaster would sit inside that L-shaped trough, and you had a lot of people. The coaster would be a little too heavy or anything like that, and they would flip out, and people would die. Before John Miller created the upstop, which was basically like a bracket that the wheel sat inside. So if you think of a bracket on a keyboard, the wheel would sit inside the bracket, so it couldn't go up or down or move sideways. And
Okay.
that's why we can do loops. That's why we can do all these weird, crazy things on coasters. So it's a relatively modern invention.
Wow.
So
Okay.
I
So,
know you probably should have done a separate podcast on the history of roller coasters, the history of amusement parks. So
well, no, that's
because
that's
there's
just
so
crazy.
much. Yeah,
So
there's really
they were just like an L, and the
yeah,
carts would literally sometimes just kind of fly
just
off.
flip out and fall over. And this is the early 1910s.
Yeah.
The very first loops were called the Flip Flap Railroad, and there was another one that were at Coney Island in like 1901 or 1902, and they had to close them down
Mm-hmm.
because they figured out they were pulling multiple G's in a perfect loop, which is hard on the body. If you look at most
Oh.
loops, they're teardrop shape because
Oh,
it
okay.
works very well on the human body with centrifugal force.
Uh-huh.
The first, and there were deaths, there were people breaking their necks on these, and people paid more to watch people than they did to ride them.
Right.
And they're crazy. If you Google or look on YouTube for the Flip Flap Railway, because they were called railways, you
Uh-huh.
will you will be terrified.
The flip flap. Yeah, I can
The flip.
imagine it's just like the Wild West of these guys just trying stuff
Yeah.
and seeing what people would go on and,
And what killed them or didn't kill them.
yeah.
There weren't safety standards for a long time, probably until like the 50s or 60s, I guess. So
Jeez.
I know
So
it's crazy.
yeah. So with these, like, I guess this is kind of the like the L tracks and all that kind of stuff in these, the flip flap that was in what, like 1910s kind of
Yeah,
era and
like
stuff.
1901, 1902, that
Oh,
early
okay.
part of the century. Yeah, those were some of the first roller coasters were in the 1870s and 1880s.
Oh,
So
okay.
they've been around for a while. Those were the very slow. They were called friction railways. They were usually called railways of some sorts.
Okay.
But yeah, they didn't have that safety until 1920. And there's a beautiful coaster at Kennywood in Pittsburgh called Jackrabbit. And it's a 1920 or 1921 coaster. So almost 100 years old. And it's fantastic. They only put a seatbelt on it like 10 years ago. Because
Oh,
you
man.
get so much airtime, when your body comes out of the seat and you feel it in your
Yeah.
stomach. That's my favorite is airtime.
Yeah.
So yeah, so you can still all across the country, you can still find great examples of these older coasters that are still operating,
Wow.
compared to these 300-400 feet beasts that you can ride as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what were they like these older ones? What were they? I mean, you said you were going slower most of the time, but I mean, if
Mhm.
there's a loop, you got to get some speed. So, like, how are these
Yeah.
guys? How are they kind of propelled? Were they just
Well,
gravity? Was there
yeah.
a?
The first couple roller coasters, they only had a few that were loops,
Uh-huh.
around 1901 or 1902, and because of they just stopped making them. The heyday in the 1920s, there were probably 28 or 2,900 roller coasters across the country. Every
Wow.
town had a small little amusement park or a trolley park,
Mm-hmm.
and they would have a coaster or two, a nice wooden coaster. So yeah, they would have a lift hill just like we see today. The
Okay.
clickety clackety that takes you up to the top, and the rest of the ride is simply on gravity. So
Okay.
you would go towards the end, but you're still, even the hills aren't like they are now. I mean, you're talking 20, 30 feet in the air was monumental at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So you would still go down the hill, probably hit 7 or 8 to 10 miles an hour, and the rest of the ride would be nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, but they were all over because they were wooden. They caught on fire. The parks would catch on fire. Yeah, I mean, we're probably down to what, 300 or 400 amusement parks in the United States now compared to the 3 or 4,000 in the 20s. So big change.
Wow.
But the cars changed
Yeah.
that too. People could travel
Mm-hmm.
further. So yeah, we can go off on as many tangents as you want to.
Yeah. Let's
I'm
do it. I
tangent.
love it.
I'm tangential. Anyway, enough about that. So
Yeah. Gosh, that's crazy that it took like 20 years to figure out just to put a
yeah,
kind of cup the wheels in there. But
it's
yeah,
like a
crazy.
stopgap that one person came up with it, and his coasters are still around. You can still ride a bunch of them. The
Mm-hmm.
Jackrabbit at Kenny, as I mentioned, is one of them. And then coasters sort of died. Disneyland built the Matterhorn in 1959, which was
Mm-hmm.
a steel tubular. I don't think it was teal, steel tubular roller coaster, and it was pretty revolutionary. And
Oh,
just because it was a round tube, so they could curve it and bend it, and they could do things they couldn't do on a wooden coaster.
right.
It was still fairly expensive to build it, so it didn't catch on. And the roller coaster craze didn't start up again until 1973, 72. I'm going to get in trouble with my years when they opened Kings Island in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Oh,
And John Allen with the Philadelphia Toboggan Company, which is a massive roller coaster company, they're still around today, PTC.
mm-hmm.
He built the racer at Kings Island, which was featured
Uh-huh.
on the Brady Bunch episode.
Oh,
And that sort of kicked off the coaster revolution in the 70s with building just a return to roller coasters, people building them. You had Six Flags parks popping up everywhere.
mm-hmm.
And then in the mid 70s, Aero Development, which had worked for Disney and built almost everything at Disneyland in the 50s and everything at Six Flags over Texas in the 60s,
Whoa.
Aero created the first major steel coasters, and they did the first looping coasters and corkscrews. And
Mm-hmm.
that just took it to the next level.
Yep.
And then the 80s and the 90s, higher, faster inversions.
Yeah.
You know, you have like, King Ka at Six Flags Great America in New Jersey. That goes like 415 feet straight up in the air. Looks like a paperclip. Goes up, comes down.
Oh
It,
man.
yeah, there's
Crazy.
so many coasters out there.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, yeah, most of, I feel like I'm just pulling you around in circles. Um, a lot of what, I research and look at, of course, is Disney history.
Yeah.
And I know that's what you had contacted me about originally. You had done the college program, right?
I did. Yeah. I lived in Florida for 3 months and did the
Okay.
whole college program thing there. And
Okay.
yeah,
Where did you work?
I worked on at Main Street in the
Okay.
Magic Kingdom. Yeah. So I
Oh,
had a pretty
very.
good job, just kind of setting up for the parade, pretty easy. Kind of got to hang out and talk to people. And it was a
Okay.
good little gig. It was fun. It was like a 3-month vacation, honestly.
Yeah.
Like I, got to go to the parks all the time. I really only worked like 2 days a week. Like the
Okay.
money wasn't, I didn't really need the money
It
at the
wasn't for the
time.
money.
Yeah, so it was just like I was kind of giving away my shifts, to people who wanted them. I was like, sure,
Yeah.
take it, and then I would just spend my time because I could go to all the parks for free, and I lived right there, basically 20 minutes away, and went to all the parks. Got a Universal pass too. Went to Universal a
Hmm.
bunch of times, so it was
Yeah.
great.
What year was that? Not to pry. I don't want everybody to know your age.
That was probably 2014.
Okay, that's not too far away then. So you got to see all the Wizarding World stuff, and I guess you
Yes.
don't travel this side of the country as much since you're located in California.
Yeah, not too often.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
but I
okay.
saw the Wizarding World thing. They hadn't opened like the Diagon Alley part
Yeah,
yet.
okay,
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, and I still want to see the one at Universal in California. See how well
Hmm.
that compares. Because my favorite themed spot in the entire world was always New Orleans Square at Disneyland. You get stuck back in there and you completely forget you're in a theme park. I mean, it
Yep.
doesn't feel like a park. I didn't feel that again until I walked into Diagon Alley at Universal, where
Yeah.
you go through and not the first one they did, but the second one is mind-boggling.
Oh,
I'll just walk around and it's amazing how good of placemaking they did.
hmm
They've opened the new Avatar, Pandora, at Animal Kingdom, which
Oh.
is breathtaking. The Animal Kingdom has the Pandora land, and don't ask me why they chose Pandora. I have no idea. Doesn't make any sense to me, but it's beautiful, and you really
hmm
don't feel like you're in Florida, but it doesn't have the warm and fuzzies like New Orleans Square or the Wizarding World. I mean, who doesn't
hmm
want to walk around Diagon Alley?
Yeah.
I know I do.
Right.
I do. So, but yeah, so once when my brother and I started this back in 2007, it was really just like he wanted to help people with his trips, and as I said earlier, was mainly wanting to express my passion for Disney and Disney history and all the reading that I did
hmm
about it. So it's been a huge journey for me to sort of understand theme design and themed entertainment and what goes on with it, because it's not just a theme park. I mean, all the people that created it, and I was going somewhere with a story and now I forgot. Okay. So that's what having a conversation with me. We'll probably finish it in like a half hour once we go there. But
That's all
I'm,
right.
I'm super passionate about Disney World history, Walt Disney World history. The early days, the construction of it, who was
hmm
involved, what it looked like in the '70s compared to today. Because I'll still run across and ask people, are you familiar with this? And they're like, I never even heard of this ride or this pavilion or this shop.
hmm
So that's probably my passion when it comes to Disney, is investigating uh, the strange and
Yeah.
the unknown of Walt Disney World history. The One of my favorite finds. This was probably back in, let's see, where was I in my life? Where was I working? That's how I'll figure it out. Probably like around 2009 or 10 or something like that. Ran across a brochure for Walt Disney World
hmm
and was looking at it and saw this weird little, it was a shot of the Polynesian, which has all the watercraft and everything, a
Yeah.
weird tiny little round boat. I was like, what in the world is this? I've never seen anything like it before. It looked like a large round tub with a canopy on top of it. So I started doing some research, reached out to some friends, and found out it was called the Bob Around boat. and researched everything about it. It was something you could rent at the not the Magic Kingdom, the Contemporary, the Polynesian, the Walt Disney World Village, which is now Disney Springs, just like any other watercraft. And it was a round boat with a motor. It had an 8-track tape in it, and apparently it was incredibly hard to steer. People get stuck out in the middle, going in circles because it was a round boat. They couldn't get back. They had to have Disney cast members come out with another boat and tow them back to shore. But it's like this little vanished piece of Walt Disney World history. I'll send you the link once we're done for the article I did on the Bob Around boat.
Okay.
Because it's fantastic. And I'd written an article for the Bob Around for when I wrote for Mice Chat, which is a huge Disneyland-focused website. I wrote for them for about a year and a half or 2 years. And after publishing my article, I got contacted by Bob Gurr, who is an Imagineer that worked directly with Walt Disney. Basically, at Disneyland, if it has wheels on it, Bob Gurr built it and designed it.
Whoa.
He built all the old Autopia cars, all the Main Street vehicles. He pretty much designed. He designed the first couple of monorails at Disneyland.
Wow.
Was responsible for. So he said, "Oh yeah, here's all my files on it. If you want to get some more history on how I helped them design this boat." And we designed another one called the Bob Along boat, which was in prototype and never went very far. Here are the photos we have of it, and it was like, what?
Yeah.
So that's why I love it. It's when you run across little things and then people come out of the woodwork and talk to you. And it's like, yep, here's some information on it. Here's something else. Or you get to talk to that Disney Imagineer that you never expected to talk to, or some famous person at Disney, something like that.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
Well, it's so cool because these, they're constantly changing the parks, so there's always stuff like that, maybe it wasn't the best design or idea because it didn't work so well. And, they got rid of it pretty quick, but those are fun stories. And then I think they do a good job of keeping, they keep the stuff like the old nostalgic stuff, but then they're also very aware of, or always looking for new stuff and new technology and changing stuff too, which is what makes it have such a great history because there's so much stuff in there.
And plussing the old technology. Something silly that was done a couple weeks ago is one of the signs in Tomorrowland was replaced, and it looks just like a sign from the 70s in Tomorrowland. So everybody's like, yay, Tomorrowland's going to go back to what it looked like originally. And, talking to some of the Imagineers that designed it, you have to realize the new ones, the Imagineers, we're like on the 4th generation of Imagineers now. Yeah. Like, the first ones that did Disneyland, and the ones in the 70s, the one in the 80s, and now the ones that are like us that grew up on Disney. So they are designing these parks based on their nostalgia as well. Yeah. Which is fascinating to me because I went to lunch with some of them at the Columbia Harbor House. That's at Liberty Square. Went to lunch. They were like, hey, let's go to lunch. I'm like, sure, I'll go to lunch with you guys. And we're just hanging out, talking about stuff. And they're like, have we been in this dining room? We need to send somebody over to photograph the wallpaper because this might be original wallpaper. So they were just as excited as I was, as us Disney nerds are about this sort of thing. And they're like, and I know they're the ones that are now designing all the stuff that's changing at Epcot and all the stuff at the Animal Kingdom and the new Magic Kingdom stuff. So their hearts in the place. But I agree with you. Disneyland is that weird place where it's been around since 1955. People don't want to see it change, but you've got to bring in new stuff.
Yep, totally.
I love the idea of the Star Wars land, but it probably should have been over at the California park.
Yeah.
I hate to see what they did to Disneyland, but
Yeah. Well, I think it's tough, especially in Anaheim, because they have no room here. So that's probably just a practical reason for that, I guess. But who knows?
It makes sense. There's just no space there. So.
And that, what is it? The Tower of Terror that they just turned into the Guardians of the Galaxy ride. Like that, when that was happening, everyone's like, "Oh man!" Like they were so upset that they were getting rid of Tower of Terror, changing the theming. But now that it's done, everyone's like, "Wow, it's way better." It was like it was meant to be like this.
Yeah, when they put the money into it, they know what they're doing. Nobody does theme park rides like Disney. So, except for Universal when they throw a lot of money at it. like Harry
Yeah.
Potter. So
Yeah, Universal has like potential, but they're not, their whole park is like put together like that. At least here in California.
yeah, same way as the main park in the main Universal Park. Yeah, Islands of Adventure is fantastic.
Hmm.
The second park, I know you've visited it before. It was when it was built and designed, it was basically Imagineers that were let go from Disney that got hired by Universal Creative. So
Oh,
it is the best non-Disney Disney park that's ever been built,
yeah.
in my mind. And if you
Hmm.
look at the concept art for it, a lot of that concept art came for stuff that was thrown away for Animal Kingdom.
Oh,
So
interesting.
the Dueling Dragons coasters was supposed to be at Animal Kingdom. Oh no, got moved over to Orlando. I mean to
Wow.
Universal. So
Yeah.
yeah, they did a lot of fantastic work there.
Huh.
So a lot of
Interesting.
that. So,
Cool. So I want to talk about how because you mentioned that like Disneyland and Disney didn't really invent anything new. They just kind of
yeah,
did new stuff to
yeah.
existing things. So what is that about? What did they kind
Okay.
of do and how did that all work?
You hear in all of Disney's PR with all of their rhetoric, like they say about the monorail, the first daily working monorail in the Western Hemisphere. So
Right.
they predicate it the proper way, basically. But if you look in the 1890s here, I can't remember what year it was, 1890s, early 1900s, at one of the World's Fairs, there was a daily working monorail. It only lasted for 6 months because that's as long as the World's Fair was, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So again, they didn't do the very first one, they just perfected it. If
Yep.
you look at animatronics, back at the Chicago World's Fair, that one in the 1930s, and like I said, if anybody gets upset because my date's wrong, I've just got so much stuff up here. Sometimes it's
Yeah.
hard to, get it
We
all out.
forgive
But
you. Yeah.
okay, just this one time. Just this
Yes.
one time. But there were some wax museums and horror museums back at the time. Not like, Halloween Horror Nights like we know now,
Mm-hmm.
but they were fully articulated wax figures that moved and had soundtracks to them.
Oh.
So sort of the same idea, controlled by audio cues and other things, but just not at the same level that Disney did.
Right.
And I tried to find it before we got on the air, but I couldn't find the exact date. But the Carousel of Progress,
Mm-hmm.
where the audience rotates around the stage,
Right.
it was a 1920s World's Fair where they had done the exact same thing. They
Oh,
had a
whoa.
show that rotated around. I love Disney. I'm not bashing on them.
Well, yeah.
They are amazing, but you got
Mm-hmm.
to got to dig deep into the history
Yeah.
of what you see and what you read about. That's one of my favorite things is just looking back and tracing the lineage of attractions.
Mm-hmm.
I did a YouTube video, a couple of them, but one on the history of dark rides. Because basically, a dark ride is anything that's inside a building, like Peter Pan is a dark ride.
Oh, okay.
It's a small world is a dark ride, even though it's not dark.
Right.
Anything that's enclosed inside a building is called a dark ride.
Hmm.
So I did a look at the history of dark rides and how we got from old Tunnel of Love rides and old rickety haunted mansion rides where haunted house rides where you would sit in a little cart and you would roll over wires and that would make stunts happen like skeletons would fly at you or
Okay.
they would hang thread from the ceiling so you felt like you were going through a cobweb.
Yep.
These were huge in the 20s and the 30s. Um, and that's what led to the Haunted Mansion.
Mm-hmm.
Rides like the Haunted Mansion and Pirates of the Caribbean all have this same ancestry. And they just, Disney just took it and blew it out of the water.
Yeah.
Absolutely went crazy with it. So
So it's kind of like Disney just had, the idea to do this, and then they kind of had they just hired like the best people in all these different industries to come together and create this like ultra park, and they had, maybe a bigger budget than most of these other guys did,
a lot bigger budget, yeah.
Yeah.
And the ability too with television and everything else and the advent of the baby boomer generation to have people travel to Southern California.
Mm,
So, I mean, that was a big part of it too.
right.
Yeah, this history is a deep, dark web. You could get lost down there forever and ever and ever. But yeah, like you said, I don't, I'm not bashing Disney. I just always like people to take it with a grain of salt. You
Hmm.
know, I've traveled all over the country visiting amusement parks and theme parks. Um, one of my favorite areas of the country is Pennsylvania, because they have perfect examples of sort of like the chronology of theme parks.
Hmm.
There's a park called Knoebels, Knoebel. It's
Mm-hmm.
in the coal country of Pennsylvania. It's what theme parks or what amusement parks were at the very beginning. So a smattering of flat rides, they had a few coasters, but there
Uh-huh.
was no gate. It's not fenced in.
Right.
There's campgrounds you can walk in, and you're buying your ticket for each individual attraction.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of like what the beginning of an amusement park actually looked like.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. The best amusement park food I've ever had in my life was at Knoebels.
Oh,
Hands
really?
down. Second best is Dollywood.
Oh,
First is Knoebels. Yeah, first is
interesting.
Knoebels. Yeah.
Huh.
So, and then also in Pennsylvania, they've got Kennywood, which we already talked about, which is sort of like an amusement park from the 50s or so. It's fenced in. You're paying one admission. They still have a lot of flat rides. They're making the transition to roller coasters and other amusement parks, but it's still not quite what Disneyland is. And then you can go to Hershey Park in Pennsylvania, and you have a modern amusement park.
Oh,
So
okay, right.
in that park, you've got the history of amusement parks right there in Pennsylvania,
Very cool.
which is fascinating to me.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
that is cool
So,
to have them all right there. So
mhm.
are there many of these kind of, I don't know, like let's say here in Southern California, like if I wanted to go experience kind of the maybe what a roller coaster was or what a theme park or what a amusement park kind of was, is there a place that I can go or anything off the top of your head?
Oh yeah, there's one that's in Northern California called I think it's called Boardwalk. Uh, there's a fantastic website that everybody can then go to called rcdb.com, which is the roller coaster database,
Oh,
and it basically
nice.
lists every roller coaster, but it also lists every park.
Okay.
And yeah, see, California's Great America is in Santa Clara. That's a great park to go to. Um, oh yeah, see, okay, is Beverly Park? Is that one gone? Yeah. So there was one in Los Angeles called Beverly Park, which your listeners can research. That's one of the parks Walt Disney went to get the
Oh.
ideas for Disneyland. So,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, right now there are 75 parks listed in California. Some are defunct, and there are a lot of them. There are a lot of them that would do that. I'm going to have to send you a list because I don't know if there's one called Fiesta Village Family Fun Park, which opened in 1974, which is probably close,
Okay.
but still, yeah, there's a lot. I know you can cut out yeah, one that was opened in 1946 in Sacramento called Funderland Amusement Park, so still operating.
Cool.
Funtown at
So
Mickey Grove and Lodi still operating. So you're still probably going to get them away from Southern California. You're probably going to have to go a little bit more north to see those.
okay. Yeah.
People can always email me. I'll help them. I'm not a
Nice.
travel agent. No, I'm not a travel agent. So
Right. Yes, yes. Yeah, that's cool. I'd be interested to like see that kind of stuff. But would it be, I mean, would I be seeing something similar to like when the Orange County Fair rolls into town?
a little bit, yeah. They're going to have some of those rides, but
Uh-huh.
these are going to be permanent installations.
Yeah,
So a
okay.
little bit higher quality. Your roller coasters are going to be safer. Yeah, I'm always too afraid to ride the roller coasters at the fairs.
Yeah.
They don't look too
They're a little
sturdy.
dicey. Yeah.
Yeah, but that's what you'll see is you'll get an idea of what it was like before Disneyland, because of course
Uh-huh.
Disneyland changed everything when they opened in 1955. Because you had the advent of Six Flags over Texas.
Mm-hmm.
There's a theme park in outside of Charlotte, North Carolina, because I used to live in North Carolina, and the owner, the builder, EPAT Hall, went to Disneyland in the 60s and came back and said, I think Charlotte needs something like this.
Mm-hmm.
So he opened a park based on the Disneyland model.
Right.
Kings Island was, Roy Disney himself, Walt's brother, consulted with them on how to build it. So
Wow.
you had all these parks that were built in the 70s to capitalize on Disneyland's success,
Yeah.
which is weird how it happened in the 70s. I can't explain that. You had a handful in the late 50s, a handful in the 60s, but it really exploded in the 70s.
Hmm.
All these Marriott's Great America parks, the Six Flag parks, it was very strange. Maybe it
Huh.
was the mobility.
Do you think it has something to do with Disney World opening up, maybe?
Potentially, but
Okay.
they all claim Disneyland as their role, as opposed to Walt Disney World opening in '71. They almost
Interesting.
always refer to Disneyland. I'm assuming it's just transportation became easier, cross country transportation. I have no
Hmm.
idea. That's
Yeah.
that's a sociological treatise in and of itself. From there, so, but yeah, 'cause even if you look in the late '50s, there were all these Kiddieland parks everywhere
Hmm.
that were trying to capitalize on Disneyland's success too. Little 1 acre, 8 or 9 different little spinny rides, because of the baby boomers, and they were all cowboys and Indians.
Oh, okay.
Very politically correct. Yes,
Yes, really.
because that was all the rage. So
Huh.
yeah,
So I mean, but like now it seems like parks are kind of getting up to the Disney level almost, especially with the Universal and stuff, where it has that same level of attention to detail and cleanliness, and you really feel like you're in like another world. But do you know if these parks, like the Kiddie Lands and those kind of things, did they really have that level that Disney
no,
was at?
they didn't have the spark or the magic. It was there to make a quick buck, and it
Yeah.
was the popular. And like I said, it would have been like a parking lot setup
Hmm.
with a handful of small little rides that uh, a couple with a 4 or 5 or 6 year old would take on a Saturday afternoon.
Yeah.
It wasn't a visit like that. I mean, if you look at the big parks now, Dollywood is a fantastic example. People ask me my favorite park. It's always the Magic Kingdom, just because it's sort of like it's my favorite park. Second is Dollywood.
Oh,
In
really?
Eastern Tennessee,
Uh-huh.
in Pigeon Forge in Gatlinburg, just because it's got a long history. But when Hearst Entertainment worked with Dolly Parton in 1986 to turn it into Dollywood, she stepped in sort of like Walt Disney did. This is my park. I'm investing money in it. I want it to look this way. She had that
Hmm.
same philosophy,
Oh, cool.
which you don't get that with the Six Flags parks. You don't get that with the Cedar Fair parks, which are Cedar Point, Knott's Berry Farm, Kings Dominion, Kings Island. It's those regional parks.
Right.
And that's the one thing. Dollywood is just spectacular. If you ever get a chance, you will love it. The food is amazing. The entertainment is top notch, and they have 7 world-class roller coasters there.
Okay.
It's great. It's
That's
great. So
cool.
Dollywood's a great park, and you can stay really cheap in a cabin in the Smoky Mountains.
Oh,
Very
really?
cheap. Yeah, like usually like 50, 60, $70 a night.
Wow.
And take 4 friends with you, because it'll be like 4-bedroom
Split it
cabins.
up.
You got it.
Oh,
You
jeez.
got
Dang.
it.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah. So
That's
I
awesome.
highly recommend Dollywood. It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. You got to get over the country and western and hillbilly tropes, but that's okay.
Yeah. So
So
is Dollywood considered a theme park then?
Dollywood would be a theme park because she has themed it to different hmm, different eras of the country. Like
Oh, okay.
there's a 1950s era with hot
Hmm.
rods, and then there is it's called Craftsman Valley, which is one of the original parts of the park from the 70s that is themed more Appalachian. And she's just they're I think it's called Wildwood Grove. They're opening a new area for kids, which is going to be based on more fantasy. She's got
Hmm.
a big butterflies, so yeah.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, the Dollywood would be a theme park. Hmm.
Okay. Yeah, I'd never
Yeah.
been there, so I didn't know about that. But so is it, I mean, I went on their website and it didn't seem like Dolly Parton is really the face of it anymore. Like, I mean, her name is still in it, but was it at any point? Was it like
It
her
was.
signature as okay.
Yeah, and probably in the late '80s and early '90s, I think she was much more heavily involved. She was at the opening of all the rides
Hmm.
every year in Pigeon Forge, which is close to her hometown where she grew up. They have a homecoming parade, and she was always the grand marshal until last year. I think
Hmm.
with her age, I think it's getting a little bit more
Yeah,
difficult. She had
right.
an apartment, and she had an apartment in the park, just like Walt Disney did.
Right.
Of the Applejack's place, which is now closed, and they tore it down, but you know, they just built a huge hotel. They invested $300 million in it over the past 4 or 5 years. It's a great resort. It really is.
Okay.
But yeah, you're right. I think they're sort of, and I think she knows it. They're sort of, you know, keeping her name there and keeping her philosophy behind it
Mm-hmm.
because they are the friendliest cast members are Dollywood and Holiday World in Santa Claus, Indiana, that I've ever
Okay.
visited. And Holiday World is one of the original theme parks that was open in like the uh when did they open that in the 30s? Can't remember offhand, but it
Uh-huh.
was the Christmas themed, and now they've
Right.
added Halloween, Thanksgiving, and 4th of July,
Nice.
different rides and different coasters and things like that. So yeah,
That sounds like a fun place to visit.
yeah. That's what I would spend my time before I moved here. When I
Yeah.
lived in the middle of North Carolina, I'm going to drive to Cincinnati and keep that as my base and go visit coaster parks, and then drive to Virginia or drive to Atlanta
Mm-hmm.
and just visit parks.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
Sweet.
doing. So
Wow. I like Holiday World. That's a cool
yeah,
concept. So
it's
was it
neat.
initially just a kind of a winter park, like a Christmas
No,
park?
not, it was
Was
a
it year
Christmas
round?
park. No, not year round because Indiana, southern Indiana, tons of snow. Like a normal park, it would close
Okay.
and after Labor Day.
Okay.
And now they've extended the park hours like everybody does for Christmas celebrations and Halloween celebrations. But it originally started off as just a Christmas park
Mm-hmm.
because it's based in Santa Claus, Indiana. And the owners, the Koch family, they were like, we should build a park to
Yeah.
celebrate it so kids have a place to go and meet
Mm-hmm.
Santa Claus. And that's what they did. And it just grew up. The family still owns it. I think it's the grandchildren are in charge of the park now, and they love it like a family business. It's like Disneyland was probably when Walt was there. People,
Okay.
everybody picking up trash, everybody super friendly, and Holiday World free soda,
Ooh.
completely free soda.
Wow.
They do not charge. They don't charge for parking. They don't charge for soda. They just charge for admission and food, and they have free sunscreen.
Oh, that's nice. I
30
appreciate
SPF
that.
sunscreen. Yeah, you just walk right up, slather it on, and keep walking. I think that's a trend we'll see in smaller parks too. Kentucky Kingdom has that,
Uh-huh.
the free sunscreen. But I talked to the owners of Holiday World, and they're like, "Oh, it's the free soda. It's nothing. People love it so much
Mm-hmm.
that they rave about it. It's such a small thing, a small cost,
Yeah.
and it's fantastic."
That's great.
So yeah, it's a wonderful park. Their customer service is off the chart.
Mm-hmm. Very
Love it, love
cool.
it, love it. So
Yeah, that's good to hear. That is the thing with like how crazy expensive it is just to go to Disneyland.
mhm.
Where these and Universal's less expensive but the same, pretty expensive, whereas
Not
these other parks,
not like it
no.
used to be. I mean, Universal is the same price now as. It's not quite as expensive as the Magic Kingdom, I guess. The Magic Kingdom is the most expensive park with was like $110 to $118 a visit now.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have an annual pass, which is insane,
Right.
absolutely insane. But I can remember my first visit to the Magic Kingdom, and it was like, oh yeah, $35. This is ridiculous. Can't believe it costs $35 to get into this park.
Yep.
And now it's like, oh yeah, $35 won't buy you a decent meal at
Mm-hmm.
any of the Disney parks. But yeah, I mean, SeaWorld, Busch Gardens, Tampa, Walt Disney World, the Universal Parks, Disneyland, Universal, Hollywood, they're at that same echelon, that same level,
Yeah.
right around $100 per day. And, a family of four going to Disney for a day, I don't know about you, but that's half my mortgage right there.
Right. Yeah. It's pretty pricey. It's
That's
crazy.
pricey. So, which is why I
Yeah.
like being a local. I got out my show and tell. I don't. People
Yes.
can't see that, but so the Disney World and pass, Busch
Nice.
Gardens SeaWorld pass,
Nice.
Universal Orlando pass. Got that one. Dollywood pass.
Oh yeah.
My Dollywood pass. Six Flags pass.
Perfect.
Still current. That's like 16 parks across the country. And
Oh.
Cedar Fair pass,
Mm-hmm.
which is Cedar Point and all those as well. And then my American Coaster Enthusiast card,
Oh,
because I
nice.
am a card carrying member of ACE of the American Coaster Enthusiast. They do a bi-monthly magazine called Roller Coaster,
Uh-huh.
which is awesome. Talks about
Yeah.
upcoming coasters, designers, builders, history of coasters.
Mm-hmm.
It's really, really cool. But that's always my party trick. It's like, yeah, I think with this, I can get into like 50 parks across the country
Man, that's
these cars.
cool. You can go anywhere.
That's what I love doing.
Yeah,
That's my thing.
it's good
That's my
stuff.
thing.
It's what you appreciate. Yep.
Yeah.
Have you been to any of the Legolands?
Oh yeah. I did go to the Legoland here in Central Florida
Uh-huh.
because that used to be Cypress Gardens, which was
Oh,
one of
okay.
the original, like not original, but one of the original tourist attractions for Central Florida. It
Mm-hmm.
was opened up, what, 30, 40 years probably before Walt Disney World opened.
Whoa.
And yeah, so it was where, whenever you see like the Go-Go's video where they're the music band, the Go-Go's, the girl band,
Mhm.
they're on
Yes.
water skis, vacation, I think is what it's called, vacation. Oh, no, anyway, that was a throwback to Cypress Gardens where
Oh.
they had the ski shows, the water ski shows, because that's what
Whoa.
the family was known as.
Uh-huh.
Basically, um, they had a botanical garden, and one day a bunch of I don't know which branch of the military it was, Marines, Army, during World War II, showed up and was like, well, hey, we want to be entertained. So they grabbed their family members and did a
Mm-hmm.
water ski. And then the very next day, more showed up. And so that started the Cypress Gardens. And to this day, I was there last year, and they do a Lego ski show, which was
Oh,
incredible.
nice. That's
It's for
cool.
5-year-olds, but I was completely captivated with it. But yeah, so the Legoland here is one half the park is like Legos, and the other half of the park is the old historic Cypress Garden, which is a walking botanical garden.
Oh,
So
okay.
they kept that history.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I love going to Legoland. I mean, I can't fit in 2/3 of the rides because I'm 6 foot tall, and but they got coasters,
Yep.
and I can do the family style attractions as well. So
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
so yeah,
good
I don't
stuff.
have the Legoland pass. I guess I'll go get that. Oh, and that's right. I didn't show you my Fun Spot pass. Fun Spot.
Oh,
So I've
okay.
got all these passes. Fun Spot's a family entertainment center, which is like a permanent carnival.
Oh.
You know? So they've got coasters, dark rides, go-kart rides, you
Mm-hmm.
know, those sort of
Nice.
things. You find them all over the
The good
country
stuff.
too. So
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
I'm,
Yeah, I interviewed a Lego builder guy, and he
ooh,
had a lifetime pass to Legoland here
oh, of
in
course.
yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I met a
No, it's pretty
guy,
sweet.
a Lego designer. Can't remember what his first name was. I think it was Jason, but he's just like, yeah, all I do all day is sit and play with Legos. That
Yep.
really is my job. And I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
See, if I had that job, I'd be like, what'd you build today? I built a square
Yep.
out of Lego. I built a box.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you're fired. You can't do the
Right.
Legos. You're not a Lego designer. Not at all. So,
Yeah. But it's cool stuff. So you're into like, what's your coaster count now?
my coaster count is only 140. And I preface that with only
Uh-huh.
because I do have friends that have traveled all over the world and are in excess of 900 coasters that they've ridden.
Oh, whoa.
But I was thinking about the other day, and most people, it's called like a coaster credit. Every
Okay.
time you ride a coaster, you get a credit because they're
Right.
all different, they're all unique. And most people in their lives have probably only ridden about 20 coasters. The Disney coasters like Big Thunder Mountain, Space
Mm-hmm.
Mountain, their local park like
Yeah.
Carowinds or Six Flags or Magic Mountain is going to have a handful of coasters. So, yeah, most people haven't ridden that many coasters and
Mm-hmm.
all. So, yeah, 140 is a big number, but that's just me. So, like when I'm going in June to the Coaster Con, that will add potentially another 27 coasters to my list.
Ooh.
With Magic Mountain has 19 and Knott's has 10, which I've already ridden 2 of them because I'd visited a while ago
Okay.
before I was coaster crazy.
Right.
Only happened like 3 years ago. So
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah,
So
just gotta do a little traveling. You got to be able to do a little traveling.
yeah. Geez, I didn't even think there would be 900 or more coasters like in existence. That seems like a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah. I mean, it's in the United States we probably have current coaster counts probably over 1,000. With all
Oh.
the different parks and everything. That's probably not that high. Probably close to 800 or so. But if you look at a place like China,
Mm-hmm.
where they will have, I think they built 400 or 500 coasters over the past 2 years. So that's what you have to do. You have to
Jeez.
travel. You have to travel.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have friends that went to Europe for 3 weeks, and all they did was visit European theme parks.
Whoa, fun.
Yeah, I was like, wow.
That sounds great.
I'm not sure my work would give me more than a week off vacation, though.
Yeah.
That's the
Well,
problem.
maybe if you explain to them the situation of what you're going to do, then
Yes.
they'll understand.
How important it is. Yes, how
Yeah.
important it is. So, and a lot of these theme parks in Europe are the ones that influenced Disney. Like
Yeah.
Tivoli Gardens and other things like that. He visited them in the 50s, and that's where he got his ideas, and
Mhm.
about cleanliness and about showmanship and about what he wanted to do with the park.
Right.
So,
Well, I mean, that's the smart thing to do, is to see what's out there and use existing ideas and just improve upon them. That's what everybody does, you know?
yeah, that's the best way to go. So,
Totally.
I with riding the coasters, some coasters I will ride over and over and over and over again. Some of them I will ride it once to get the credit, because it's going to hurt me, or it's going to make me sick, or I'm not going to enjoy it. And I can pretty much tell by the manufacturer of the coaster or by looking at it what it's going to do. Because I think my favorite coaster right now is Mako at SeaWorld, which is called a hyper coaster because it goes more than 200 feet.
Oh.
And Giga Coaster goes over 300 feet.
Okay.
My favorites are usually don't have loops in them. I don't like the loops.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the ones with lots of air times and lots of hills where you feel yourself. It's called ejector air time, where you feel yourself getting thrown out of the seat and you float for a little bit. Those are my favorite. And Mako is a great one. I know there's a few at Knott's Berry Farm, and I'm excited about Magic Mountain, trying some of those. So,
there's some crazy stuff there.
Yeah. There's as many coaster manufacturers as there are car manufacturers, and different brands and different types.
Mm-hmm.
Hanging, inverted. I mean, there's all different types of coasters. So.
Yeah, it's really crazy, the stuff that they're coming up with now, where it's like, do you think we're kind of hitting the limit of like the possible like exertion on a human to be in? That's what I was
going to say. Yeah, it's the threshold of the human body. I mean, when they first made roller coasters, and it's like, can we withstand this? Is there, is this possible? The very first. The oldest coasters are Russian ice slides from the late 1700s. One of the Tsarina's, Catherine, I think, they would build 3 or 4 story high ramps, and they would sort of wet them down and let them freeze, and people would slide down them.
Oh, nice.
You would climb upstairs, you would slide down it. Then they were transported to France, and they were called Russian Mountains, and then they sort of died for a while, and then they came back, as we talked about earlier. But even then, with the first, loops, are people going to survive this? Can they survive the speed? How many G's can you pull in a coaster before you black out? I grayed out. Intimidator 305 at King's Dominion has a massive hill, 305 feet. So it's not the tallest coaster I've ever done, but it's super fast. And I come down that first hill, and just the world slowly got dimmer and dimmer and dimmer, and grayed out by the time I'm at the bottom of it. And
oh man!
What was I go to Dragon Con, which is in Atlanta. It's like Comic-Con, but they've been doing it for like 20 or 30 years, and I do panels there, usually about Disney history and stuff like that. But I was on a roller coaster panel, and they invited an actual jet fighter pilot to be on the panel with me. And he said, a lot of those coasters pull just as many G's as you are in a fighter, a jet plane. And they're putting your body, when you twist and turn and bank and curve, they're putting you through the exact same thing. And like, we have specially designed suits we wear to keep you from getting clots and hemorrhages and stuff like that. So I think it's like length. Yeah, you can't be on a roller coaster too long. It can't go. Most of them probably hit about, I think what's the fastest when I was in Abu Dhabi, it's 140 miles per hour.
Damn.
It's the fastest coaster now, 140 miles per hour. And Fury 325 in Carowinds goes 95 miles an hour. And that's fantastic. It is literally, it's a breathtaking coaster.
Yeah.
You up 325 feet in the air, and by the time you reach the bottom of that hill, you're going 90 to 95 miles an hour.
Woo.
A hot day, the track's hot and the grease is hot, you will go faster. So you'll go much faster. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So there's a lot.
Yeah, it's fun. I feel like there's at least for me, I like the like I went on X2 at Six Flags, and that was
Yeah,
just
yeah.
like that was too much for me. That
Okay.
was crazy.
Okay.
But I like Silver Bullet at Knott's Berry Farm. Love
Silver
it.
Bullet is, I think that's the one that's, it's a B&M coaster. I think it's suspended.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Your feet are hanging down.
yeah,
Yeah.
your feet are hanging down. Yeah. So I'm
Yep.
pulling up the Knott's Berry page on Roller Coaster Database.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I've ridden Silver Bullet and I've ridden Accelerator. Because
Yes, that one's fun
Accelerator is
too.
the one that takes you up. Like it, yeah. That's
Hmm.
the baby version of um, Top Thrill Dragster at Cedar Point and King Ka at the Six Flags Park.
Oh dear
Yeah,
God.
yeah. Top Thrill Dragster is the one that takes you 320, and King Ka goes like 400 and something feet straight up. It, does that linear induction motor where it's magnets underneath it. So instead of having a
Oh.
lift hill, they
Uh-huh.
just reverse the polarity on the magnets and zoom
Yeah.
0 to 105 or 120 in less than 6 seconds.
Ooh.
Straight up, you're at the top, and then you crest down. When I rode Top Thrill Dragster at Cedar Point, I mean, it's a 30-second ride.
Hmm.
By the time it starts, it's done. You're like, oh, that was great. But they also have Millennium Force at Cedar Point, which goes barely crests 300 feet, so it's a giga coaster, and that's like, wow, this is pretty high. You go to the top of Top Thrill Dragster, you look over, and they go, oh wow, Millennium Force is so small. What are we? It's over in a heartbeat. So
Yeah.
definitely try it. Yeah, if you get to Cedar Point, if you get out to Six Flags, the one in New Jersey, Six Flags America. Anyway, it's well worth it.
Hmm.
You got to try these coasters. They're so much
Try
fun.
them. Yeah.
Just try them. If you don't like it, then don't go on it again.
Right.
That's the
That's
best
good.
thing. Yeah. I've never
Yeah.
gotten sick on one. Never gotten sick, so
Hmm. That's good.
that's
It's a little scary about them they're wearing special suits though to
yeah.
prevent injury, and then they just throw hundreds of people on these things every day.
Yeah, but because you're on it for such a short time period, and it's such a
Yeah.
slow, it's all at once, and there's no build up. So I
Hmm.
think your body just has time to get over it, and then you're done. But
Right.
I think about that every time. It's like, wow, okay, this is what jet fighters pilots go through.
Yeah.
No, okay,
But we're like, well, I guess, they probably figured it out. They wouldn't put us on something unsafe, but that's
yeah,
what the people in 1910 thought probably.
yeah, that's probably what they thought too. We're not going to, and that flip flap railroad people, and that first they broken necks.
Yeah.
That
Whew.
they I don't remember where I read it, but people had done studies, and they, based on the designs, they think they pulled about 12 G's on that thing. And it
Whoa.
was incredibly small and incredibly tiny, but because it was a circle,
Yeah.
when people got around it, it was pulling. And I can't remember where it was that I had
Hmm.
read a paper on it, and they're like, yeah, this was probably one of the worst coasters ever designed.
Man.
And
Yeah,
it didn't
that
last
is.
for, I think, more than a season or two at Coney Island,
Hmm.
one of the multiple parks at Coney Island. So
Yeah. Well, I'm sure there wasn't much thought to like the physics and, the G-force of it. They just put it together and thought, that looks like it'll go around there and people
yeah,
will stay in it. So let's do
and
it.
they tested it. They
Yeah.
would put things in the seat to make sure it didn't fall out, and they would eventually get to monkeys. Yes, they used monkeys. Ugh, we
Oh,
won't talk about that, but they used monkeys
oh my
before they
gosh.
put humans on it,
Okay.
and then they would test it with humans.
Yep.
Now there's so much science that goes behind it. Disney parks, they don't let
Hmm.
you bring selfie sticks in.
Yes.
Because if you have a selfie stick and you're on a ride and you're holding that sucker out and it's extended your reach another 3 to 4 feet, it could knock off, a piece of the theming, hit somebody behind them. It could stop the ride.
Hmm.
Disney has a, I can't remember what the name of it's called, but it basically measures the sphere of influence. Leonardo da Vinci has that famous painting of the Vitruvian Man,
Yep.
where it's the guy standing there with his legs spread out. He's got the circles around him. It's
Hmm.
basically something like that fits on all of their ride vehicles. So then once
Oh.
they design it, they do their computer, they put that on it and they run it through. And if that hits anything, it stops the ride, and they re-engineer, redesign that part of the ride
Hmm.
so that it's outside of your sphere of reach, I guess is what it's
Right.
called.
That makes
All these
sense.
all these little things people just take for granted.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't take your selfie stick on the rides, people. No,
Yeah.
you're gonna hurt somebody or stop the ride and ruin the vacation for everybody else.
Yep.
So
It's messed up. Yeah, so I mean, are they kind of finding, well, for example, I think it was the Harry Potter ride at Universal, at least the one here. I think they like backed it off a little bit where it's not as crazy anymore.
For
Do
the
you know about that?
intensity, which one are you talking about, the Forbidden Journey, the one where you're on the bench, or is this the Escape from Gringotts, or
The one where you're in the castle and you're like on that arm thing and
yeah, the
it's
Kuka Arm, yeah, the Forbidden Journey. Yeah, I
okay.
haven't heard about that one, but yeah, they've done that before, where they
Yeah.
have like Dinosaur at Disney's Animal Kingdom. It's the same ride as the Indiana Jones ride, same
Hmm.
track layout, everything is the same, but it's a horrible ride. The Indiana Jones ride at Disneyland is amazing.
Yeah.
It's like the second or third best dark ride in the world.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. But the same ride over at Disney's Animal Kingdom with different theming and different programming, and they
Uh-huh.
actually had to bring that one. It was so violent because the car moves around and jerks you around. You go back in time to save dinosaurs.
Hmm.
They had to dial that one down. You know,
Oh,
but
wow.
I haven't read about the one in California. But it makes
Yeah.
sense because you're on the basically the KUKA arm, KUKA. The KUKA arm is the robots they used to build cars. And
Oh,
it's a mobile base that can drive around, and like it holds you at the top, and it can move you not quite 360 degrees around in a sphere, but it can move
hmm.
you everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah. And some rides I come off of that and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna need to sit down for a minute.
Hmm.
It's just a little too intense.
Right.
It's a little too
Yeah.
intense.
Yeah,
So
they kind of have to make them where it's like, fun and extreme, but it's good for the majority of the
yeah,
population where they're not
yeah,
going to throw up afterwards.
yeah. The Mission Space at Epcot. Did you ever do that one while you were here?
You know what? I did. I went on that one. It was like when I was in Disney World when I was really young, went with my family, and that
Yeah.
it wasn't really open, but it was like a pre-opening
Oh,
thing or
they're doing a
something that they
soft
did.
opening. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we got to go on that thing, and it was awesome.
See,
Like it was
that's
crazy.
that's one that they've dialed down a couple times
Okay.
because it's centrifugal. It's hard to explain, but when you walk out, you're basically being spun in a giant circle, just like at NASA when they do the astronaut training.
Hmm.
Um, and so they now have the two different sides, the orange and the green is the tame one. They've stepped
Yeah.
the green one down so much they actually introduced a new film for it.
Oh, jeez.
And because it's the orange one is so intense and gives you that true feeling of weightlessness
Hmm.
at several points during it. So yeah, again, they've set it out there. The attendance wasn't right. People complained. So they dialed it down or tried to make it more family friendly.
Yep. Well, I
You
like
know,
that they did the two sides at least where
yeah,
they have that.
yeah,
But even I went on it when I was in a couple years ago when I was in Disney World, and even the orange side felt like less than it was before, but that might just be me. At when I was younger, I felt it was more intense maybe.
yeah. And
But
they may have dialed that one down too.
yeah.
So I know for sure they've stepped it down like twice or three times to make it that much less intense.
Yeah.
So they give kids booster seats for that ride now, for that
Oh,
side. So yeah, they've brought the intensity down enough for little kids to ride it.
that's
So
cool.
yeah,
That's a really fun ride. It
it
really
is.
does feel like you are blasting off into space in that thing. It's awesome.
Mhm. Yeah, I haven't ridden the orange side in a couple of years. I'll go back and do it. So I've ridden the green one a lot more, but I'm like, I just ate. Maybe
Yeah.
I'll wait and go do something else. So
Yeah. Do I want to ruin the rest of my day for this one
yeah,
ride?
just for this one ride.
Whew. Wow, okay, this is cool. I think we've talked most of this stuff. Oh, have you done any of the like virtual reality coasters?
Yes.
Are
Oh
those
yeah,
pretty
yeah,
good?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I've done two VR experiences, and I'll talk about. There's one I just did a couple weeks ago that was amazing.
Hmm.
But every year they have the International Association of Amusement Parks and Attractions show,
Hmm.
IAPA, which is based in Orlando, and they do it. They do it all over the world, but they take over the the Orange County Conference Center, and it's like a convention for theme park and amusement park owners. You can
Hmm.
go and see new rides. Virtual reality was huge a couple years ago. Everybody had that, and
Yep.
it's where you can buy arcade games, cotton candy machines. It's bounce houses, or you
Uh-huh.
can go stop at the Bollinger and Mabillard booth and buy a $20 million roller coaster if you want to. It's
Right.
there. Got the money, they'll talk to you. So, Fun Spot
Hmm.
which is one of the local family entertainment centers here in Orlando. They have a coaster that's called Freedom Flyer, and it's one that's suspended. You hang underneath, and your feet fly. But
Hmm.
Mach, which is a German coaster company, and they build amusement rides. They were developing a VR system, and they tested it there, and they let all the IAPA people ride on it for free, and it
Ooh.
was fantastic.
Yeah.
It was programmed beautifully. I've heard some hits or misses, like Six Flags did it 2 years ago, where they put VR on their coasters, and they
Right.
did always sync up right. And they had a lot of complaints about it. It didn't seem to work well. This was smooth. This was
Hmm.
beautiful. So I think that's a great way to do it. Because at first I was like, oh, why are you going to you're riding a coaster to ride a coaster.
Yeah.
Why put a VR helmet on? But after
Hmm.
experiencing this, you basically were in a space fighter. So of course it did all the banks and the turns and the swoops. It was
Hmm.
perfectly timed. You had a little button on the helmet you could hit to fire lasers at the other things as it was going. It was really well done. It's really
Wow.
well done. So I, I think it was a flash in the pan because it takes too much time to load and unload. It takes too much time to maintain the equipment. It's
Oh.
neat, but obviously Six Flags didn't keep up with it, so I don't think it's going to stay.
Okay.
But something that's close to you that you can do, because you're in Southern California, it's called the Void. I think they have it at Disney
Oh,
Springs. Have you done that? Or they have it at
at
Downtown
Downtown
Disney?
Disney.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
I've seen it. I haven't done it, but I've
Oh,
walked by it.
uh, took the family as a surprise. My
Uh-huh.
wife, 15-year-old, and his best friend, $35 a piece. I was like, let's do this. I've heard great things about it.
Uh-huh.
Best 15 minutes of my life. It was better than
Oh.
any roller coaster. It was better than any dark ride. It was better than paying, to go see a Star Wars movie.
Uh-huh.
It was that good and that visceral and that real. There's a you've seen people where they play the game the floor's on fire, and you hop
Oh,
from couch to couch, you can't touch the ground.
right.
There is a small section where you're playing a stormtrooper, and when you see you just have a helmet and you have a backpack that has a
Hmm.
computer on it, basically.
Right.
And when you use the goggles, you see your friends or your whoever, they look like stormtroopers. It's you hold your hand up and you are wearing stormtrooper armor on your hand. It's
Right.
crazy. But there's a part
Whew.
where they take you to Mustafar, which is the planet from Revenge of the Sith, where
Hmm.
Anakin and Obi-Wan have their battle, the lava planet. And
Oh,
there's a part
right.
where
Yeah.
they pull you out on this little edge and they're like, okay, get on this gangplank. And all four of us are going, oh my gosh, the floor is lava. We can't. And they're watching everybody and laughing.
Yeah.
But it was that hyper realistic. It was awesome. And I got to shoot stormtroopers. I've wanted to shoot stormtroopers since I was 6 years old. And I
Right.
got to do it was incredible. So
Okay.
if you have a chance to do the void, it's go take they do groups of 4. Go take 3 friends with you.
Hmm.
It is well worth it. It's spectacular.
Okay.
It's amazing.
That's
It's
good to know.
yeah.
Yeah, because I've
I'll
seen
do it.
that. I've thought about trying it, but I wasn't sure if it was worth it. But now that it has your seal of
Even
approval.
the glasses too. The
Oh yeah.
glasses were not a problem at all. They put the helmet on and you tighten it, and
Uh-huh.
as it tightens, it just gets real close. And I had no problem seeing anything. There were some big surprises in it, and like I said, you get to shoot stormtroopers. And my accuracy range was at like 38%, so I would be a perfect stormtrooper.
Yes. Yeah.
I
Very
would be
true.
a perfect stormtrooper. I was missing half of them. And then my son was like, I was like, "What's that feel? What's wrong with me?" He just grabbed the gun. At one point, they gave you guns to shoot rifles, and he was just shooting me to see what would happen. I'm like, great, great.
Yep.
This is why
Well.
we don't have the Nerf wars any longer at the house because we get hurt. So, so yeah, I like VR. I think VR could be neat, but if you're there on a coaster, you're there for the coaster. But these
Yeah.
VR experiences, like the Void and other things, that's the future of themed entertainment.
Hmm.
They're bringing the Nintendo lands to Universal.
Oh
You heard about? Yeah.
no.
Parts of Islands of Adventure and potentially a fourth park, and they're building it now in Tokyo. Hayao Miyazaki. No, wait a minute. Hayao Miyazaki's Studio Ghibli. Oh, who's the guy who did Mario and Zelda and Well, anyway, the lead creator designer is working with them, and he's been
Hmm.
letting go with some of the stories, and they are talking similar VR where you're going to walk up and be able to punch a coin block,
Ooh.
be able to do very specific things in a Mario world. I've heard rumors that the adventure area of Islands of Adventure is going to be turned into Zelda,
Oh,
which would be fantastic. And
cool.
of course, Mario Kart. All heard rumors about Mario Kart racing, but it's going to be crazy. They can
Okay.
incorporate VR into that. It's going to be mind-boggling good. It's going to be another Harry Potter, just Universal take my money.
Hmm.
Please take
Yeah.
my money. And I've heard rumors about Star Wars Galaxy Edge that are pretty exciting too. So it's there's going to be a lot coming up in the theme parks over the next couple
Yeah.
of years.
Is
Yeah.
Star Wars Galaxy Edge, is that the new ride in the Star
Well,
Wars Land thing?
yeah, that's what it's going to be called in both parks, Galaxy's Edge.
Oh, okay.
So it's sort of like you are. I've heard lots of different rumors, but it's sort of like, the one here in Florida, there's a hotel that's going to be built right next to that area of the park.
Hmm.
And it's going to be super expensive. But you will be given clothing to wear when you're in the park,
Oh.
and you will be given like if there's a family of four,
Hmm.
like they may come to you and say, don't tell them, but you're the smuggler, and maybe your son is going to be a bounty hunter, and you'll have things to do in the park that will earn you credits. Like if your son's the bounty hunter, he's like, yeah, my dad's the rebel spy. If he tells the guards there's a play that's acted out, and he gets money put into his account for it. I mean, it's going to be there's going to be a lot of storytelling,
Oh my
a lot.
gosh.
So you're going to see guests like at Harry Potter wearing wizard robes. If they're going to be wearing Jedi robes, they're going to be dressed appropriately, and it's going to be crazy good, crazy crazy good.
Wow.
So I don't think I'll be able to afford it because I've heard it's upwards of $1,500 to $1,800 a night
Yowza.
experience. Yeah, it's gonna
Yeah.
be top of the top.
Right.
So
But I'm sure they'll be booked. They'll have people.
they will. They
Yeah.
will. So the Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. They're going to bring a lot of technology into that. The new Nintendo Land is going to have a lot of technology, and uh, I'm excited. It's a really good
Yes.
time to be a theme park fan.
Yeah.
Really good time to be a theme park fan.
I'm glad
So
they're really embracing the new technology and stuff because it has a lot of potentials.
yeah,
It's very cool.
the Flight of the Banshee, which is in Pandora. It's sort of like a cross between Soarin' and the Simpsons ride,
Hmm.
where you actually sit on the back of a banshee. It's sort of like a
Oh.
motorcycle that you sit on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so well designed that, you're sitting on like a motorcycle, so your legs are resting around the body. And there's a part where you stop flying for a few minutes. And if you pay attention, you can feel the animal breathing underneath you.
Whoa.
They designed it that's the Flight of the Banshee is uh, wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
It's still an hour and a half, 2 hour wait for it because it's that
Yeah.
good in the
Right.
park, you know. But
Yeah.
I guess they need to keep doing experiences like that.
Mm-hmm.
Is what they need to do because the new Toy Story Land is okay. It's small. It's like 11 acres,
Mm-hmm.
and it's only the Slinky Dog coaster, which is a great mock coaster, perfect for the family. The
Mm-hmm.
Alien Space Saucer Swirls, which is just like a teacups ride, and then
Okay.
you've got Toy Story Mania. So just three things in this land. They need to.
Mm-hmm.
I'm complaining now. They need to just do bigger and greater stuff.
Yes.
Now, did you ever get to ride Spider-Man over at Universal?
I did. Yeah. Is that gone now?
No, it's still there. It's still there. They've
Okay.
upgraded a few years ago. Hands down, that's probably the best theme park ride I've ever been on.
Oh, wow.
That is the top. I mean, I love the Forbidden Journey, the one inside the castle, but it's a
Mm-hmm.
little too much.
Okay.
You can't take everybody on this ride. You can take anybody on Spider-Man.
Yeah.
But the way they use the characters, the way they use the real effects, like the real fire and things like that, and real water, the way he moved it.
Right.
I think for like 12 or 13 years running, Spider-Man won, best dark ride from the Themed Entertainment Association. And to me, it's
Wow.
still the best ride
Very
I've ever
cool.
been on. Indiana Jones and Flight of the Banshee battle for second and third place because
Wow.
they are that good. They are that good of rides.
Yeah.
before then it was like Pirates and Haunted Mansion. Those are still
Hmm.
my favorites.
Yes.
I still love going on those.
Yeah.
So yeah,
But these are very different. Yeah.
they are very different, very modern. Took my son on for the first time a few months ago. And I think we read it like 5 times, wrote it 5 times.
Nice.
I was like, yeah, we'll do Spider-Man one more time. That's fine.
Yes.
So, but he's 15, so that's what do you expect? So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's why these parks are getting so expensive too, is because we expect we expect better and better and crazier stuff and this new technology. So
yeah,
that's what,
I
but you
mean,
get what you pay for, I guess.
Spider-Man was probably like 120 million.
Mm.
Yeah, and from what I understand, it cost them probably close to $1 billion, not quite, three-quarters of $1 billion to open up Animal Kingdom in what, 97, and they pretty much spent $1 billion building Pandora.
Whoa.
Yeah, so the amount of money that they're spending on Star Wars right now, I don't even want to think about it.
Yeah.
As interactive as that's going to be.
Yeah. It's
So
cool stuff though. It's good for
yeah,
us.
yeah,
Fun.
exactly. But still got to pay for it.
Yeah, very true.
That's why you have to buy a $14 churro. So
Yep. It all contributes to the new rides.
that's what it is.
You're
Think of it
donating.
that way. You're donating for the new rides. I like that. I like that a lot. So.
Cool. Well, okay, and then I also wanted to ask you about you talked to Diane Disney Miller.
Oh yes, yeah, that's right. We talked about that. That was one of my favorite moments. So a friend of mine, his name is Jeff Curti, Kurtti. He's worked for Disney Imagineering. He worked for the Walt Disney Family Museum. He's worked for all these other places. Disney author. He wrote the Since the World Began, which is the first book on Walt Disney World history, covered the first 25 years. The guy's awesome. He's just all around great guy, lives in California. But he was working for the Walt Disney Family Museum, which is located in San Francisco, because the Disney family, specifically Diane, wanted to have the museum away from LA and away from Disneyland so that she knew once she was gone and she wasn't in control, Disney wouldn't come in and go, we want this. So she moved it far enough away. So long story short, Jeff Curti was working with the museum, and we've known each other for years, and he just reached out to me and said, hey, would you want to write something for, the website? I was like, sure. He goes, okay. And then I was living in North Carolina. I was in a Chuck E. Cheese restaurant because it was a birthday party for one of my kids' friends. I think it was before I had my first iPhone. I can't remember which one it was, but I was just randomly on a Saturday checking my email, and there was an email from Diane Disney Miller, and I remember all of it so vividly. It was like, this is Walt Disney's daughter just emailed me. Whoa. So we emailed back and forth. We talked once over the phone, which was astounding to talk to her. She's so gracious, so nice. She's like, oh yeah, we just got back from a month-long family vacation in Hawaii. I was like, oh, okay. Sure.
Yeah.
And
me too.
Yeah. I was like, yeah. I've seen pictures of Hawaii. Yes. But we talked about her family and her history. I tried not to fanboy and salivate everywhere. But she goes, okay, well, let me tell you a story that I haven't shared with anybody else and see if you can work it into something. And it was a story about her mom and dad, Walt and Lily, because when Walt and his brother Roy started the company, that they were Roy had a girlfriend that lived in Kansas, I think, and he brought her in, and then Lillian, Walt's future wife, was a friend of the family and just started working there, and she was a inker and paint girl, and then eventually was a secretary. And he said one night we were looking over some documents and Walt just leaned in and kissed her. And that was the first kiss that they had. And she told me the whole story about it. And, I'm furiously taking notes and trying to, get her emotion down on it to talk about it. But the funniest part of the story is what Diane, the daughter, recounted to me was that her mom, Lillian, said, I think Walt kissed me and started dating me because I was a terrible secretary. And he had to get me out of the business somehow. So that was what she always said about it was, he had to start dating, get me out of the Disney company itself.
Right.
So I got to write an article for the Walt Disney Family Museum blog, which is still up there. It was a Valentine's Day article. Just loved
Oh,
it. It's my one claim to fame besides, riding 140 coasters. So
right.
but it was nice. It was nice to have a connection to, the Disney family and get to talk to them and,
Mm-hmm.
and be part of that for a little while.
Yeah, that is very
Fascinating.
cool. Yeah.
Fascinating. So,
And that museum
yeah.
is really good. I visited there a few months ago. It's awesome.
Yeah, I haven't made it out there yet, so I'm hoping to get out there when I'm in June.
Mm-hmm.
Just, too busy visiting all these other parks. That's my excuse.
Yep.
I'm
Well,
sticking
that's a good
to
one.
it.
Yeah.
About it. Yeah. So,
Whew, cool. Well, right on, George. This was awesome talking about all this stuff. So fun.
we've been on this for a long time, but I could
Yeah.
go on forever and ever and ever. If you ever want to do a sub-series just about Disney history, we can actually just talk about Disney history if you want to.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
So, yeah,
We
or
should do
the
that.
construction of Walt Disney World. It's fascinating.
Ooh. Yeah.
Fascinating what they did and what they turned it into. So,
Okay. Yeah, I would love that because especially Epcot, I'm really curious about that too, about what it was supposed to be and then what it kind of became.
yeah, I've got some interesting backstories about some of the designers they pulled in and just got rid of them. They didn't like the ideas. So,
Man.
okay. Yeah,
Okay, let's do another. Let's follow up. Let's do another one in a bit.
I got time. I got free time. So
cool. Wow, that's a good cliffhanger. We'll get people to subscribe that way.
You do it that way, yeah.
Yeah.
It's coming. We're not gonna tell you when, but it's coming. So.
Yep. Cool. So I guess again, just tell everybody where your website, social media, any of that kind of stuff.
Sure. You can pretty much find me on ImagiNERDing on Twitter, on Facebook, on Instagram. I do a lot of postings live in the parks on weekends. So if you're jonesing for some Magic Kingdom, Epcot, Universal, Busch Gardens, any of them, find me on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. I'm always posting photos there. Of course, my main site is ImagiNERDing.com, and that's pretty much my hub. Everything links out from there. And as I mentioned earlier, sort of like 2 years now, I've been doing weekly YouTube videos, and it's changed a little bit. At first, it was all history and theme park related, but now I live there, and I've got my really cool Sony action camera that I can take on the parks. I love this thing. I love it, love it, love it. I do a lot of not a lot of live, but I do a lot of, what I did this weekend at the park style. Come with me to Disney Hollywood Studios and we'll just walk around and talk and look at things. Sweet. So love that. But I'll send you the link so that you can promote it. I did a article on the Walt Disney World books that everyone should read.
Oh.
So I did a bibliography. I'm a librarian. A bibliography is a list of books. So I've done in my mind what are the essential, not essential, that's different. The essential Walt Disney World books, the history books, the art books, the concept art books, so you can do a deep dive. You can share this with anybody that really wants to learn more about Walt Disney World history.
Cool.
Because I've done a few with Disneyland, and Disneyland's got some amazing books. If you ever find a copy of the Nickel Tour, it's the history of Disneyland through postcards.
Okay.
It is the best books ever done.
Wow. Okay.
Two late Imagineers, they both passed on, did it, and it is spectacular. It's called the Nickel Tour. If you can never find it, grab a copy of it. Yeah.
Okay.
But that way, we can create a list of books that every Disney nerd needs to own. Maybe.
Yeah.
Get them started on it.
Right. Very cool. Yeah, the history is awesome. Would love to read more on that. I read the really thick Walt Disney biography by Walter Isaacson, maybe.
Neil Gabler.
Neil Gabler. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I read that one. You're not a fan? Is it not on the list?
No, that book is not on my list. It was they closed the Disney archives after he visited. The Disney archives used to be more open to the public. The Disney family has shunned the book. The Disney company sells it in the stores because it's the most recent biography. But it's got there's an author named Michael Barrier who has basically studied animation his entire life, and he's written a book called The Animated Man about Walt, which is a spectacular biography. The Animated Man by Michael Barrier talks about his work, And then the official Walt Disney and American original by Bob Thomas, which was a few years after he died, looks more at his life.
Okay.
So there's other books that are better, but the Michael Barrier has a 4 or 5 page list of what's wrong with Gabler's book.
Ooh.
Inaccuracies, problems, other things. So not a big fan of it. People love it, but once you read more than one biography, you start to go, oh, yeah, not quite there. So again, I'll send you these links. I'll send you.
Cool.
I'll make a Disney nerd out of you.
Perfect.
Too,
Yeah.
So.
Awesome. And all those links, I'll throw them in the show notes for anybody listening. Click on them easy and get all that stuff too. So cool.
Yeah, this has been a lot of fun.
Yeah, this is awesome. This stuff's so cool to talk about. Love it.
Yeah. Thank you so much for having me on. And like I said, hit me up when you want to do something again. Epcot.
Of course. Yes, I would love that. Awesome. Well, enjoy your weekend. Are you going anywhere this weekend?
Yeah. Tomorrow I've got fast passes for the Animal Kingdom. So I'm doing that. And then I haven't decided what I'm doing much further. It's week to week.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Why tie yourself up?
Why tie myself down to any one park when I've got, 10 of them to go to? So.
Yeah. Perfect, George. Well, have fun, all right?
All right. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks.